Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're doing a little something different now. We're going to mix it up. We've been creating an idea to also establish a YouTube platform. And it's going to work for us because as the weather shifts and changes and the roads are maybe not the best. And the fact that Tamara and I live a little distance apart, and with everything going on, this might be the best way for us to connect with each other. So, little prelude to the conversation. The Oh, and also we're going to be having some interviews. So that's the other big thing that's going to be happening, that we needed to have a way to record over distance because some of our guests are from the US and different places. And so we needed to have access to a program that would allow us to do that. So today we're going to be talking about leaning into the grit. And what does grit mean? I found a definition and I'm not sure who it's by or where it came from, but I absolutely loved it. So I took it down, and it says the raw endurance, perseverance, and passion that keeps you going despite obstacles. And it's something that Tamara and I had discussed earlier this week, that we were both really feeling. We were speaking to each other. I've been reading her posts on her Facebook and Instagram, and I wrote out something for Align and Rise about leaning into the grit when things feel like maybe a bit of a challenge or hard for us. And so the grit part is just, leaning into what's your drive, what's your purpose, what's pushing you to get to where you want to go.
I just love that so much. And we really feel like, as much as we love sharing like past experiences or things that we've learned, we feel like it's so important right now to share what we're in. Like, we are both in the middle of leaning into the grit with our own things. And we feel like it's important that like, we're in it right now. So if you're in it, hopefully this can kind of just, I don't know, bring some clarity or some peace, or that you can take away from what it is that we're doing to get through the things that we're leaning into right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and something that keeps kind of coming up for me is, everybody's journey is their own. And, leaning into the grit sometimes means that you won't be the most popular person. You won't be liked by everybody because, you're going through some changes, and you're going through, like, it's hurdles to get over. But remembering why you are doing what you're doing is so important, because it's not always comfortable, and sometimes it comes with pain, and growth typically does. Like, my favorite story, and Tamara's heard this probably more than she would care to, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe she likes it. Most of my friends have, but something that really impacted me was the story of that I had read in a book about a rabbi that was talking about growth and change, and how he had been sitting in a dentist office waiting for an appointment, and he saw this book. It was like National Geographic, and it was talking about lobsters and how they change their shells. And he was saying it didn't really intrigue me, but he's like, it was the only thing there to read. So he picked it up and he started reading it. And basically he said, we are exactly like that. We go under stress, we come under pressure, which is exactly what happens to the lobster. They get too tight in their shell. They take it under a rock, they go under there, and they lose their shell, and then they create a new one. So that happens continuously. It's not just one time, one and done. It's a continuous cycle of feeling the pain, going under the rock, shedding that old shell, creating a new one, and then keep, doing it from there. And I think that's something, but I think that you can get more comfortable in the pain. And that's what I've been feeling, is that when you're feeling the pain, that's when you lean into the grit.
Because on the other side of that is growth. And that's really what we've learned on this process. The things that we've been through, the things that we've learned, our personal experiences, we get it now. When we come to this space where we're like, ooh, I don't love this. This is so uncomfortable. please know we realize, okay, we're in it. We've got to get through whatever it's going to be, as uncomfortable as it is, as much as we want to run away or we want to hide or we want to just not deal with it. We know that when we lean into it, we do the things that we have to do. We show up, we focus, we stay in alignment with what our goals are.
Yeah.
On the other side of that is going to be some brand new, really cool stuff. And it's going to come again.
Yeah.
That's the whole part of growth. This is growth. We're in it. If we're not facing these tough, challenging, crazy times, and everybody has a different story.
Yep.
Maybe your hard is completely different than my hard. Maybe I look at your hard and I don't think it's hard, but everybody has their own story. When you're in that hard and you get to the other side, some really cool stuff happens. And then you just have to be prepared that it's going to come again, because that's the whole process of evolving and growing into the next best who you're being called to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a mentor of mine write it out, and I shared this with Tamara a while ago, but I just drew a little diagram. So there's always this, it's essentially, it's a cross, and there's always this line where you cross over and you're going up, right? You're continuously growing, you're moving upwards. So you'll always go through this moment where everything is okay. So I'm just going to show this. So this is your, where you start learning curve, right? And then you hit this place and you're like, okay, this feels comfortable, because this is where you are most comfortable, is right in this area. And then this is the curve that you start growing and going up, right? And to continue on from there, there's another level, right? So you're going to keep going up, and you're going to hit the next level. And again, you're going to be like, okay, I got this. This feels comfortable. This is okay. This is good. And then you're going to pass that threshold, and you're going to grow up again, and it doesn't feel comfortable. So if you start looking at this, how much time is spent here opposed to all of this, where you're growing and you're stretching and things are super uncomfortable, and you have to just, like you said, prepare. But I think that's where leaning into it and being like, you know what, this is it. I can make the best of this, or I can just lay down and be a victim.
Yeah. And if you're staying in that level place where you're comfortable, you're not growing. Things aren't going to change. You're just ignoring opportunities. You're ignoring all these things that are coming and that are waiting for you on the other side of it. And we don't have it figured out. Like, we're in it right now. We're both struggling with different things, but I think you have to allow that struggle. You have to feel it. You have to know that it's part of it. You can't ignore it, whether it's feelings, whether it's a situation, whether it's letting go of people, whether it's maybe shifting your mindset from something that you've been carrying with you and being in for a really long time, and now it's not serving you. And so it's getting to the other side of that. And Dev and I will actually talk about that in our next podcast, sort of where we're moving with that, where we've been in this one place doing one specific thing, and our hearts are calling us to do something different. And that's uncomfortable, and that's scary. And we can get lost in the idea of, oh, but we don't like how that feels, so maybe we'll just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
But that's not growth.
Oh, no. And I just had a thought pop into my head right while you were speaking that. And I was just like, and maybe that's why, because I feel like I literally just came out of growth, and I'm like, oh, yes, it finally feels good. Like, I feel good. I feel like pretty comfortable where I'm at. And then I literally feel like it just kicked me, like I just got kicked into the next room. It's like, you were comfortable. So sorry. Here's the next.
Yes.
Because the way that our hearts are shifting and moving is requiring us to grow, and it might be growing at an accelerated rate. I don't think that it's always rapid, that
but it can be.
Yeah, but it totally can be. And I feel like that's where we're at. And I also feel like it's very interesting. I've been learning a lot about energies and archetypes. So like, we've talked about a lot about this. Different people call them different things, but so there's Zeus and warrior. Those are the same things. And then the goddess and the healer are similar. And there's the oracle and the architect and then there's the fun, I believe. I can't quite remember in the Unblinded what the other two were, but the one is fun, and then the other is more like the architect, where you're like about numbers and focus and data and all that stuff. But what I'm realizing is when you tap into each individual energy, depending on where you're at, it's very interesting. Like, to share a story, this one day I woke up in the morning and I just didn't feel like myself. I felt very uncomfortable in my own skin. I actually called Tamara that day and I was like, I literally feel like a snake that is trying to shed its skin.
Mm-hmm.
And what so I meditated, because that usually just triggers me to like focus, hone in on my breathing, and I usually can use that technique to get myself into a better place mindset wise. For some reason it didn't work. For whatever reason it didn't work, and I kind of know the reason now, because there was some growth that needed to be had, and basically it felt like my Zeus energy or
Mm-hmm.
my warrior energy is like, enough, you're not hiding from this anymore. You've been
Yeah.
creating this stuff in your life, and it felt like my Zeus energy was stepping forward and being like, you're done. This
Mm-hmm.
is over. So it started in the morning. There was some me complaining about a certain situation with certain people in my life, which, generally speaking, I really try to not do, because I know that that never creates better energy.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, that's where my brain was going. It was just repeatedly going to this place. And then that evening, I ended up actually having a discussion with my ex, that was really, it triggered my inner warrior to step up and not protect myself, but he very much triggers his warrior. Like, it comes more naturally to him, and I'm learning to be more natural at it and step into that. So it was good, because we created a different boundary dynamic there, where we got to the end and we clearly weren't on the same page, but I still left it as, have a great evening. We don't have to agree on everything. That's
Mm-hmm.
just life. Not everybody's going to agree with everything that you have to say. From there, it triggered into this other relationship that I have been struggling with for months. And it was really interesting, because it felt like these other two things that were happening triggered this to come to me, because it was like I was focused on these other two things, and all of a sudden my brain was just like, oh, and while we're on the topics of conversation, or of relationships that are not serving you, this one is done. So, like, it felt like it was a very interesting moment. And I realized, I'm like, what is your worth?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that is something where, having leaned into the uncomfortableness, because you know that it's going to come, but you also know that there's going to be another side on the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
But leaning into that grit, leaning into the uncomfortableness, it creates a different level for you to step up on
Yeah.
and realize maybe you needed that trigger. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know why the meditation didn't help me in the morning, but it created a trigger reaction throughout that whole day that led me to a point that I've been battling with for months.
And it's becoming aware of those triggers, like, okay, this is what I'm in. This is what I feel like. Why is that bothering me? What do I need to do? And
Yeah.
so you start to become aware of those things. And that's one thing that I know, me personally, and Dev talking to her, like, awareness has become so big for both of us. We're aware of our feelings, we're aware of where we're going, the path that we're on, the things that step in that either serve us or that don't. And
Mm.
then we get to choose what we're going to do with those things. And I was just thinking when you were saying, oh, well, while we're on this topic, here's more. I sort of feel like God, the universe, whatever it is that your source energy or higher power is like,
Mhm.
man, they handled that really well. Just going to give them a few more things, right? Like, let's speed up the process. Let's get through this. They're on a roll. So, like, I don't know. I just picture like sprinkles of something. But that was like what I was picturing. I'm like, yeah, like right where you're talking about, sometimes it's accelerated growth.
Mhm.
Sometimes it can feel like you're on the level plane for a very long time.
Yeah.
And maybe when you are on that kind of level place, you're comfortable, things are just like kind of smooth. And then you hit those rough waters, it's a little bit unexpected. Like, at some point, more
Mhm.
growth is going to come, but
Yeah.
sometimes it hits you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
And I feel like we literally like Deb was saying, just got through this like huge growth period where we're like, okay, like now we can, nope, we can't breathe. Never mind. There's more.
It's like labor. It's like the labor I had with my son when I was hooked up to the Pitocin machine, and I just come out of one contraction
And another one starts.
it just shoots right back.
Yeah.
You're like, really? And you just keep bracing yourself for that.
But you just have, you're in it.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
in it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, maybe that's a crazy thing to compare. Like, let's just pretend life is labor, but really, I mean, it's really good because you're like, you don't get to be like, no, hold on.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here. I'm going to, right. We don't get that choice when you're in labor, but,
No.
and in life, right?
No. Yeah.
If we want growth and we want to move and we want to get through the really hard points, we just have to be in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we resist, we're going to be stuck in it. And I've learned that. Mm-hmm. If we don't just open ourselves up and be in it and take the steps and work through it, we're either going to feel like we got through it and it's going to come first full circle back to us, or we're just going to stay stuck in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is like, I think I wrote on the post the other day, it's like, you get to learn from these lessons. It's not like, that's a privilege. Growth is a privilege that not everybody wants to accept and take on. So you get to learn these lessons, but how long you stay within that lesson is totally up to you. Yeah. And on that note, I know Tamara has an amazing affirmation for you to take away. So Tamara.
I do. So our affirmation for today is, I am divinely guided at all times.
Have an amazing day, everybody. We really, truly appreciate all the support that you've given us.